2NURFM.com, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
Joined now by the University of Newcastle's Director of the Tom Farrell Institute for the Environment, Professor Tim Roberts. Today, Professor Tim, we're looking at adaptation versus mitigation.
That's it, Dave. Two words we've got to get to know because these deal with climate change. They deal with the fact that the world is warming up and therefore there are going to be changes in our climate. And what do? Mitigation involves reducing the magnitude of the climate change itself. So mitigation is the business of reducing emissions reduction. And that's getting rid of the problem at its very source. And then the other way is called geoengineering, which is really, really frightening in my mind. And that is offsetting the effects of the greenhouse gas emissions. And some of the geoengineering ideas that are around are, for instance, putting up big mirrors there to stop the sun shining so much on the earth. Equally, putting chemicals up into the upper atmosphere that will block the amount of sunshine coming through. And to my mind, the geoengineering solution has a bit of a problem about it because one person or one country can decide to do some geoengineering and that would then affect every other country and every other person in the rest of the world. So that's one we really have to watch. The other one is adaptation, and that's our efforts to limit the vulnerability to climate change through various measures. And indeed, we read in the newspaper about Lake Macquarie in particular, where the local council has said, let's set some defined limits as to where you can build because we have to adapt to the change in the water level. And then you read in the newspaper, somebody says, well, we can adapt to that by building a big lock all the way around, a big wall, a moat all the way around Lake Macquarie, and we can live behind that just like they do in Holland. So that's adaptation, and adaptation is our response. And of course we'll do that. We'll put up seawalls and we'll do a lot of adapting to maintain our possessions and maintain our lifestyle. The problem is that coral reefs, for instance, have a great deal adapting, great deal of difficulty adapting. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is they're ecosystem services that nature provides to us in a forest or a coral reef, for instance, won't be there. So adaptation really affects the whole lot, and we have to be careful how we do it. Adaptation is necessary to be done because already we are starting to see changes due to climate change in the weather and so on. And equally, we're starting to see, I think, changes in business as well. I'm sure we'll see our insurance companies and our banks will already be factoring in climate change into the premiums regardless of where we live, because they have to take the long-term view and they will say, well, okay, if that change occurs, then values will go up, values will go down, and therefore we will put it into premiums and we will put it into home loans and so on. So that's the business of adaptation and mitigation. If I could just say it one more time, mitigation is the action taken to limit the emissions. And we have to do some of that, of course, because already we are looking at having great difficulty to stop temperature going up by 2 degrees, and we want to hold it at that. So that's mitigation. Adaptation means the steps that governments, business, communities and individuals take to deal with the risks from climate change impacts.
Okay. What about for us for next week, some homework? What would you like to talk about next Tuesday?
There was a recent report about regional sustainability in the Lower Hunter region, and I wanted to talk about just what does that mean for our region, this regional sustainability.
That'll be good. We'll talk about that next Tuesday morning. Thank you, Professor Tim.
Thanks, Dave. Good to see you back.
Joining us from the University of Newcastle, the Director of the Tom Farrell Institute for the Environment, Professor Tim Roberts at 2NURFM 103.7.